guys, welcome back to the Big Sew Along. I'm Jenny, and as always, I thank you very much for choosing to spend some time with me. This week, I do have a follow-up to last week's video. I will be talking here in a minute about my men's khaki pants upcycle. And before I get to that, I just want to thank everybody for all of your suggestions. I will get into those in a minute. I actually tried a couple of them, and we came up with something that kind of works. Before I get to that, however, I thought maybe we could have a little discussion here in the comments, because Cynthia left me a comment about these pants, and I actually think that she's referring to these pants that I was talking about last week, the ones that I drafted using that online tutorial. But it doesn't really matter if she's talking about these pants or the drop crotch pants that we're working on this week. This is her comment. Okay, so this is from Cynthia, and she says, I usually love everything you do, and I learn so much, but can you explain this trend of droopy drawer pants? Which totally makes me laugh. I just don't get it. I know they look comfortable, but flattering? Question. Is this a reaction to the opposite of leggings? I just don't get the appeal. So, and I didn't really leave Cynthia a very long response because I just wanted to talk about it with you guys. First of all, I do think that this trend towards really fitted and then really loose, like in fashion, it's just like a pendulum. So yeah, I do think it's a backlash against the skinny jeans look of the last decade. Other than that though, this extreme like sort of drop crotch or hammer pants, as one of you commented, is, I don't know how big a trend it is in the overall world. I do think that in log and look, it's always been around. As for the appeal, here's my question for you guys, and this is what I would like to discuss, because I feel like my audience here is pretty much split 50-50 on this issue. Like, you either, like, half of you guys really like this look, and half of you guys are like, I don't get it, and I don't think it's flattering, and I don't want anything to do with it. Both completely valid, by the way. Obviously, I'm on team drop crotch because I talk about it all the time. But are they comfortable? Yes, and I think that we can all agree on both sides that the comfort level is one thing. But let's talk about it aesthetically. I know the comment I hear most often is that they're not flattering. And I guess that is true to some degree, depending on what it is you're looking for, what you think is flattering, I guess. I like pants like these ones I showed you last week because I like the way that the fabric drapes and folds. I think that looks really beautiful, so consequently I find that flattering to some degree. Is it flattering in the sense that it shows off your figure, which is what we're used to in a pair of pants? No, it's not. So, if you are on team drop crotch, not actually that easy to say, let me know in the comments, what is it aesthetically, aside from the comfort level, tell me what it is aesthetically that you like about this type of pant. And if you're not on team drop crotch, let me know what it is you think is unflattering. Is it the lack of fitting in the seat so you can't actually see a figure? My friend Susan says to me all the time, I just don't understand why you want to make your legs look so short. So maybe it's something like that. I'm really curious to know what it is that you don't like. Not just like unflattering, but like more specific. I'm just really curious to know what it is we do and don't like about these particular pants. I will say as a caveat that of all the people in my life, I don't know any of them that actually like these pants on me or anyone else. My husband doesn't like them. My mother doesn't like them. None of my friends like them. My best friend, Missy, is the person who comes the closest, and I think that she just, I think she appreciates the look, but she would never wear this. Okay, so that's me. I am really curious, really curious, you guys, to hear your thoughts on this, like what it is you do and don't like. Okay, so let's get back to these men's khaki pants I'm trying to upcycle. Also, I just want to note here that I did notice last week after I posted my video that autocorrect changed in my title. They changed the word upcycle to epicycle, E-P-I-C-Y-C-L-E. I have subsequently fixed it. But is anybody else like confused as to how autocorrect automatically changes upcycle to epicycle, but in like the last decade they can't figure out that I don't know how to spell defense or difference or anything spelled with D-I-F? I don't understand why that's the one thing they can't help me with. Okay, so this week we are going to talk about, well, let's get back to these men's khaki pants that I wanted to upcycle. So I had so many really good suggestions from you guys. A couple of you guys suggested a gusset or a gusset-like situation, and by that I mean something like this. I think this was D that told me to go look these pants up. They're called the Chai pants. It's an old advertisement, but you can see in the crotch in these pants there's like a diamond shape or square shape gusset. I did try that. I actually thought that was going to work. Now that I'm thinking about it again, maybe it would have worked if I used a bigger gusset. It didn't work for this. And I'll show you here in a minute why. A number of you also suggested using a pattern that I already had for a drop crotch and sort of trying to replicate that crotch. So that is what I ended up doing. I used my trusty Burda pattern, Burda 6358. This is a pattern I have made, I think I've made this 3 times, and I really like it. So I have a short video here on how I did this, and I'll show you in the very beginning why my square gusset didn't work. But like I said, I might be able to work that out at some point. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole again. Here's what I ended up doing. Okay, let's talk about this gusset idea, which is essentially what I was trying to do last week. But here is the problem with a gusset, you guys. Get my pins here. Essentially, a gusset is going to look like this. This is obviously cut in quarters, but essentially it's going to look like this. A piece there and a piece there. And you can see that does in fact look like it's going to drop the crotch a little bit, right? So it seems like it's going to make sense, but here's what happens. When you put those pants pieces together, you can see, ignore this, that doesn't matter. What you can see is you haven't really added any length to your crotch. You've only added depth, which is the difference between the front of the body and the back of the body, right? What we want to do is add length, which means we want this point to be down here, this point to be down here. So we're trying to increase the length. By adding the gussets, all we do is make the front and the back further apart. Here we have my by now very well known pair of thrift store khakis, and I'm going to put on here the pattern piece I just had, which is my Burda 6358. This is a drop crotch pant. It is not the drop I wanted, but it's what's going to have to work here. So I'm going to put this in the middle of my pant, and I'm going to, these pants aren't the same, so I'm just going to have to try to get them as close to lined up as I can, and I want to be sure that my grain line is pretty straight. When I do this, you can see here, right? The crotch of my original pant is up here. I want my crotch to be down here. I need to move the crotch down. That's what we're trying to do here. So, in order to do that, I am first going to cut this crotch off because I can't have a curve here and also a curve down here. like that. Okay, I'm going to lay my pattern back down on here. And when I do, I can see I need extra fabric right here. So I'm going to make a mark here and here. And then I'm just going to make a couple of slashes in here. This is not obviously the best line, but we're going to fix that in a little bit. So I'm just going to put a slash like a little outside of those points. And then I have this just a piece of my hem that I cut off, and I'm going to use that like this. I'm going to right sides together. I'm just going to start right here where that first notch is and make sure I go to the second notch, which is down here. Okay. I'm going to sew that in between my notches. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so here I have my little flaps attached. I've also serged that edge off and pressed it towards the crotch. Now, I'm just going to put my pattern back on here. Again, doing the best I can to line this up with where it should be in terms of the grain. And now I'm just going to cut around this pattern. Cut this out. And on this pair, I want it to be narrower anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it all the way to the hem. Okay, so here's my back piece. You can see my piece is laid a little funny here, and that is because this Burda pattern has a back yoke that goes up here, so I've measured that out, and that should be fine. But this really is just about, I think right there. This is where my crotch should be. So I'm just going to do that same thing. I'm going to mark where I need more fabric, which is right here and right here. And this time, I'm just going to sew my pieces right in this way. And I'm going to do the same thing. Once I get those pieces in, I'm going to serge that edge and press it towards the crotch. And then I am going to come back here, lay this out like this, and recut my pant. Okay, so this is my back piece sort of traced out, but I just wanted to show you guys one thing. You can probably see, I'll get close up so you can see. My curves don't quite match up here. This is little, like my new curve is here, and this is my old curve. I'm just going to sort of fudge that by matching my curvy ruler up down here. And I want this line, this is my cutting line, so I want it to match up to this seam allowance here. So I'm just going to retrace that. Like that. Alright. Now I'm going to finish cutting these out. Alright, so these are all cut out. Normally I would sew my inseams first and then sew my crotch seams. But since I already have these laid out like this, I'm going to sew my crotch seam here and my front crotch seam. And when I do that, I'm just going to make sure that my my stitching starts right here, right in this seam. And in fact, I think I probably have to go over to the front and remove some of that. There's edge stitching on that seam, so I'm going to have to remove that a little ways, and then sew that along that seam line all the way to here, and then do the same thing in the front. Then we can do our crotch seam, our inseam in one fell swoop. Alright, so I have my crotch pieces in, and I'm pretty happy with it. I also edge stitched my seams down. Not the best edge stitching job. I will say, if you're going to try this, make sure you place your pieces when you sew them to the sides, that you make them exactly even. Otherwise, you're going to end up with something like this here where it doesn't really match up. Note to self on that one. This in the back, you can see it's a lot better. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is turn these inside out, and I am going to sew this inseam in one fell swoop from this hem all the way around to this hem, and then we'll try these on. Alright guys, so I wouldn't necessarily, I'll show you a couple pictures here of these pants now that they're finished. I wouldn't call this a fail, but I also wouldn't call it a huge success, and here's why. Although this worked for the shape I was going for, what I didn't take into account was something else that a lot of you left a comment about last week, and that is the drape of the fabric. So if you have a drop crotch in a twill fabric like these, that is probably just fine. However, adding a crotch like this, and it doesn't really work that well because a twill fabric like this, like a cotton twill fabric, already doesn't have any drape to it, and every time you sew a seam, it gets less and less drape. It gets stiffer and stiffer because of all those seam lines. So while this came out more or less the way I was expecting, I'm not crazy about it. I do think the front crotch looks a bit funky. Okay, and I don't know, you guys. That's it. Whatever it is, these pants I am finished with. I'm not going to mess with them anymore. I've spent the better part of 2 weeks trying to sort this out. Something that seemed like such a simple project turned into something ridiculously complicated. I'm going to hang on to these pants. I don't know that I'll wear them as is. I'm going to keep them, and I might play with them a bit and see if I can't come up with a better method for this whole thing. As I said at the very beginning, I really appreciate all of your comments, everything. I looked at every single suggestion and tried to like figure out how that could work. So again, thank you so much for that. All right, so that is it for me this week. Please let me know your opinions about the whole drop crotch, it's so hard for me to say, drop crotch harem pant situation in the comments below. I'm really curious about that. And until next week, I wish you all happy sewing.